In college, I was what you'd call a professional simp. My target, since we were practically kids, was Scarlett Vanderbilt, the undisputed princess of New York's old money, Upper East Side scene. When she went shopping on Fifth Avenue, I carried her bags. When she claimed a stomachache, I was the one making her bone broth from scratch. When she didn't feel like going to her art history lecture, I was the one who pulled an all-nighter writing her essay on Renaissance iconography. When she attended some gala at a Hamptons estate, I'd wait outside in my beat-up Civic until 3 a.m. Just in case, she texted me saying she was craving a slice from that legendary spot in the West Village. For more than a decade, this was my life. My roommates would laugh at me. Leo, have you lost your mind? What do you think you were to Scarlett Vanderbilt? You're not even on the back burner. You just free help. What they didn't get was that I wasn't free. I was meticulously priced. Every Venmo transfer Scarlett sent me was at least 4 figures. For holidays and my birthday, she'd send 5. She was careless with her money, tipping me like you'd tip a valet, or maybe like you'd toss a treat to a well-behaved pet. On the day of our college graduation, I stared at my banking app. The balance read 7 figures. I was sitting on my dorm room bed, and I let out a laugh that sounded more like a pig's squeal. Before even officially entering the real world, I, Leo Hayes, a kid from nothing, had leveraged the one skill most people despised, unflinching devotion, to become a millionaire. My plan was simple: get my diploma, take the cash, and vanish. I would say goodbye forever to the untouchable princess Scarlett Vanderbilt and to the pathetic skin I'd worn for all those years. At the graduation banquet, Scarlett moved through the crowd in a custom Dior gown, a graceful swan among pigeons. She was surrounded by a flock of trust fund kids, all of them laughing at something she'd said. And there I was, in the corner, wearing a $100 button-down from Macy's, feeling like a nervous waiter. Finally, she saw me. Holding a glass of champagne, she glided over, her clique of smirking friends trailing behind her. "Leo, you made it," she said. Her tone was the same as always, a little lazy, a little entitled. I nodded, forcing the most subservient smile I could manage. This was it, my final performance. "Scarlett, is this the one you always talk about?" "Leo, the one who's so obedient?" One of her friends, a girl with meticulously sculpted makeup, looked me up and down. The condescension in her eyes was a physical thing. Scarlett took a delicate sip of her champagne and let out a soft laugh. "That's him, the one I trained. Isn't he good?" The whole group laughed then, a sound full of the casual cruelty of the upper class amusing themselves with a lower form of life. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible fist. I couldn't breathe. I had always told myself this was a transaction. As long as the price was right, my dignity could be put on layaway. But hearing her call me a trained pet so easily in front of everyone, I realized then that some things can't be numbed by money. "Leo," Scarlett said, tilting her head as if struck by a fun idea. "My shoe. I think the lace is loose. Can you get that for me?" She was wearing a pair of diamond-studded Jimmy Choo heels. They didn't have laces. The group around her started to hoot and egg me on, all of them watching eagerly, waiting for the next scene in their favorite show, the princess and her loyal dog. I stared at her, at that face that was so beautiful it was almost violent. In that moment, I didn't see a young woman. I saw a spoiled, callous devil. "Leo, just one last time," I told myself. "Get on your knees, take her final tip, and then get the hell out of her world for good." I slowly began to crouch, my knees about to hit the polished floor when a lazy drawl cut through the air. Well, if it isn't Her Highness Scarlett Vanderbilt, teaching new tricks." I froze, looking up. The speaker was Connor Vance, the other big name on campus. But unlike Scarlett's old money crowd, the Vances were new tech money. In the snobbish circles of the Upper East Side, where lineage was everything, they were looked down upon. Scarlett's face went cold. "What's that supposed to mean, Connor?" Connor scoffed, walked over, and pulled me to my feet. He brushed off my shoulder, though there was nothing there. His eyes glanced at me, then settled on Scarlett, filled with a knowing mockery. "Means nothing. Just think my man Leo's got too much spine to be kneeling for you. It's a bad look for him. Whether it's a bad look is for me to decide." Scarlett snapped, her voice laced with the anger of someone who'd been challenged. "Leo, come here." She was still using that tone, the one you used to call a dog. I stood next to Connor, And for the first time ever, I didn't react like one of Pavlov's experiments. I didn't obey the command. I looked at her and slowly, deliberately shook my head. Scarlett was stunned. She had probably never, in her entire life, considered the possibility that I would refuse her. Her expression shifted from shock to embarrassment and finally hardened into something ugly. "Leo, are you sure about this?" she asked, each word a threat. Just then my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. It was a direct transfer from her. A huge one. The memo line read, "Last time, be good." The amount was a staggering 6 figures. She thought I was still the same simp who could be bought with a few taps on a screen. She thought if the price was high enough, I'd get on my knees and perform. The air grew thick. Everyone was holding their breath. Even Connor watched me with amusement, curious to see how I'd play it. I unlocked my phone, glanced at the number, and then, in front of everyone, I hit decline. The transaction was complete. I turned my phone screen toward Scarlett, making sure she could clearly see the 2 words in stark red, frowny face, "Payment declined." "Miss Vanderbilt," I said, my voice a little hoarse but perfectly steady. "Our contract has expired. As of today, I quit." Without a second glance at her ashen face, I turned to Connor. "Thanks, man. I owe you a drink." Connor let out a low whistle, slinging an arm over my shoulder. We walked out, leaving a crowd of shocked blue bloods in our wake. That night, Connor and I drank a lot of whiskey. I told him the whole story, framing my decade-long career as a simp as a kind of dark comedy. From carrying Scarlett's backpack in middle school, to getting into a fight for her in high school, to becoming her 24/7 personal assistant in college. Connor listened quietly. He didn't laugh. When I was done, he just refilled my glass and asked one question. "Do you hate her?" I shook my head, then nodded. I didn't before. I saw it as a fair trade. But after tonight, yeah, I hate her. She didn't just trample on my dignity. She made my entire life's work into a joke for her friends. "Good," Connor said, tapping his glass against mine. "A man needs an edge. Something to burn. That's your fuel now." I asked him why he'd stepped in. He shrugged. "I've been waiting for someone to knock Scarlett Vanderbilt off her pedestal for a long time. That whole old money crowd is rotten to the core. Besides," he paused, "you remind me of my dad back when he was starting out. Working like a dog, taking crap from everyone. But my dad made it. I think you can too." I didn't know if I could make it, but I knew I had to do something. With my $1 million nest egg and an investment from Connor, I started a company in Manhattan. The name was unique, the Alibi Group. Our main business, bespoke, high-end personal and professional solutions. To put it plainly, I systemized, streamlined, and commercialized the last 10 years of my life. I had a Ph.D. in pleasing the impossible to please. I knew better than anyone what the rich really wanted, what their true pain points were. They didn't need another servant bowing and scraping. They needed an invisible hand that solved problems before they even knew they had them. From planning an exclusive private dinner party down to the last detail, to sourcing a very specific breakfast pastry, to advising on how to navigate the unspoken social rules of a business merger. I turned everything I had absorbed from being in Scarlett's orbit, taste, etiquette, connections, the secret codes of their class, into a premium product. My clients were mostly the new money types, like Connor's family. They had the cash, but lacked the polish and pedigree to break into the truly elite circles. I was the guy who could get them a ticket to the show. My first client came from Connor. A tech mogul who'd made a fortune in gaming wanted to throw his wife a birthday party. The budget was unlimited. The only requirement. It had to be so perfect that even the most judgmental old money snobs would be impressed. I essentially recreated a party I had once orchestrated for Scarlett, but I made it 100 times better. From the weight and font of the invitations, to the wine pairings for each of the 7 courses, to the set list of the live string quartet. Every single detail was flawless. The party was a massive success. The client's wife was so moved she nearly cried, saying it was the most elegant and wonderful night of her life. The Alibi Group was an overnight sensation. Business boomed. The name Leo Hayes, once a joke, started to be spoken with reverence in a very different circle. People started calling me Mr. Hayes. I deliberately avoided any event or person connected to Scarlett Vanderbilt. I assumed our paths would never cross again. Until 1 year later, I got a call for a major new contract. A pillar of New York's high society, the Vanderbilt family wanted to hire a firm to plan a massive welcome home gala for their only daughter, Scarlett, who was returning from a year studying abroad in London. The person who contacted me was the Vanderbilt's head butler, a man who had always looked down his nose at me. His voice on the phone was dripping with deference. "Mr. Hayes, your reputation precedes you. Mr. Vanderbilt would like to meet with you personally to discuss the gala for his daughter." I sat in my spacious corner office, looking out over the East River, and gave a non-committal "My time is extremely valuable," I said. "Have Mr. Vanderbilt come to my office." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. My audacity was probably short-circuiting his brain, but he finally recovered, his tone even more respectful than before. "Of course, Mr. Hayes. I will inform the chairman immediately." After hanging up, I spun a heavy fountain pen in my fingers. My heart was a block of ice. Scarlett, after all this time, we were finally going to meet again. Except this time, I wasn't the simp waiting in the corner for her command. I was the vendor, and she was the client. Scarlett's father, Arthur Vanderbilt, arrived at my office 10 minutes early. He was impeccably dressed, but there was a weariness in his eyes that his tailored suit couldn't hide. It confirmed the rumors Connor and I had been hearing. The Vanderbilt empire was over-leveraged, and their cash flow was dangerously tight. "Mr. Hayes, a pleasure. It's impressive what you've built," Arthur said, shaking my hand with the practiced smile of a lifelong tycoon. I gestured for him to sit. My assistant brought in coffee. Not the Blue Mountain he famously drank, but the Kopi Luwak I had specially prepared. It was a niche coffee Scarlett had been obsessed with for a few months, and I had once driven all over the tri-state area to find the freshest beans for her. Arthur took a sip, and his eyes flickered. "You've done your homework, Mr. Hayes." "I'm familiar with the family's preferences," I said calmly. He took this to mean I'd done my research on him and thought nothing more of it. We talked for a long time about the gala. Arthur had one primary objective. It had to be spectacular. A statement. It needed to announce to all of New York that his daughter was back, and that the Vanderbilt name was as powerful as ever. It was less a party, more a desperate PR campaign to reassure investors and banks. I remained professional and detached, presenting several preliminary concepts. Arthur was deeply impressed and was ready to sign the contract on spot. "Mr. Vanderbilt," I said, stopping him just as he was about to sign, "I have one small condition. Please name it. For the duration of the planning and execution, I require a direct line of communication with Miss Vanderbilt herself. After all, it's her party. Her input is paramount." Arthur paused for a second, then smiled. "Of course. That's perfectly reasonable. It's time Scarlett started networking with talented young men like yourself." He put a heavy emphasis on the words talented young men. He didn't remember me at all. Or rather, in his world, the poor kid who used to follow his daughter around like a puppy wasn't even worth remembering. After the contract was signed, I walked Arthur Vanderbilt to the elevator. Once he was gone, Connor sauntered out from his own office down the hall. He'd set up a satellite office in my building after my company took off. He handed me a cigarette. "Feel good?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not yet." A week later, I was invited to the Vanderbilt mansion on the Upper East Side for my first work meeting with Scarlett. It was the same townhouse I'd spent countless nights waiting outside of. Only this time, I drove my own Porsche through the front gate, and the butler opened my car door for me. I walked into the familiar, grand living room. Scarlett was sitting on the couch. She was even more striking than I remembered. Her year in London had given her an air of worldly sophistication, but the innate arrogance in her eyes hadn't faded one bit. She saw me, and a complex series of emotions flickered across her beautiful face. Surprise, disdain, and a sliver of curiosity. "Leo?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "Miss Vanderbilt, hello." I extended my hand, my face fixed in a polite, professional smile. "I'm Leo Hayes, founder of the Alibi Group. I'll be managing your welcome home gala." I made sure to say the name of my company slowly and clearly. Scarlett didn't take my hand. Her eyes scanned me, from my bespoke Tom Ford suit to the Patek Philippe on my wrist. It was a watch she had pointed out once while window shopping, remarking that it was the only watch a man of taste should wear. I remembered, and I bought it for myself with the first million I ever made. "So it's you," she said, a humorless smile playing on her lips. What happened? Did you get tired of being a simp and decide to try being a high-class butler instead? The words were meant to be a slap in the face. I retracted my hand, my expression unchanged, and sat down on the couch opposite her. You could see it that way, but I'm the most expensive kind. My composure seemed to infuriate her. Name your price, she said, crossing her arms and leaning back, resuming her princess posture. How much money will it take for you to get out of my sight and disappear? I looked at her and almost laughed. After a year, she still thought money could solve any problem. She still thought that Leo Hayes could be bought and sold. Miss Vanderbilt, I think you're mistaken. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and pushed it across the marble coffee table. I'm not here to reminisce, and I'm certainly not here to be insulted by you with your own money. I'm here to work. This is the preliminary event schedule. I need your approval on the key items. Scarlett didn't even glance at the folder. My father must be losing his mind. Of all the event planners in New York, he picks you, she scoffed. Leo, don't think for a second that just because you're wearing a new costume, you're a different person. This whole hard-to-get act, it's just a pathetic attempt to get my attention again, isn't it? To drive up your price. Let me tell you right now, it's not going to work. I admit, I've done many things in the past that might have given you the wrong impression, I said, looking her directly in the eye, my voice even and clear. But that's all it is, the past. Right now, Miss Vanderbilt, I have absolutely no personal interest in you whatsoever. I took this job for one reason and one reason only. Your father offered an amount of money that was too significant to refuse. My words hit her like a physical blow. Scarlett Vanderbilt, who was accustomed to every man in her orbit revolving around her, who was used to me being her most loyal and pathetic subject, could not process it. She couldn't accept that one day I would use her family's greatest weapon, money, as the only thing connecting us. And worse, that I was the one weighing its value, not her. Her face flushed, then paled. It took her a moment to hiss out a response. Fine. You want to work? Let's work. Let's see just how professional you are. That day, we collaborated for 3 hours. Scarlett used every trick she knew to make my life hell. When I suggested champagne-colored roses, she called them tacky and demanded black roses flown in from Holland. When I proposed a classical string quartet, she said it was dreary and insisted on hiring a troupe of Irish pipers. When I outlined a main course of beef Wellington, she called it greasy and demanded a full molecular gastronomy menu. Every request was more absurd and expensive than the last. She was trying to prove a point, that her wealth could crush my pathetic attempt at professionalism. I didn't argue. I just sat there with my notebook, jotting down every single demand. After her 20th ridiculous request, I closed the notebook and stood up. Miss Vanderbilt, I have noted all of your requests, I said. However, per the supplementary agreement signed by your father, all expenses exceeding the baseline proposal must be paid in advance by the client. Here is the revised cost estimate. The total comes to $172,000. Please have the funds transferred within 24 hours. Otherwise, my company reserves the right to terminate the contract and collect a 50% cancellation fee. I placed a beautifully printed, itemized invoice on the table in front of her. The look on Scarlett's face was frozen disbelief. She never imagined that I would have anticipated her attacks and set a trap for her within the cold, hard logic of a business contract. She could be as capricious as she wanted. She just had to pay for it. You, she sputtered, speechless with rage. I'm a businessman, Miss Vanderbilt. I said, my gaze frigid. Time is money. I don't have time to play these childish games. If you're unhappy with my service, feel free to tell your father you'd like to hire someone else. It makes no difference to me. With that, I picked up my briefcase and walked away. At the door, I paused without turning around. Oh, and one more thing, Miss Vanderbilt. I'd prefer that money be wired directly to my company's corporate account. I'd rather not have any more personal financial transactions between us. In the silence that followed, I heard the distinct sound of porcelain shattering against a wall. From that day on, Scarlett changed. The sarcastic remarks stopped. The impossible demands ceased. She became cooperative. So cooperative, she was almost robotic. Our meetings became sterile, efficient business negotiations, devoid of any personal emotion. It was so cold, it almost felt strange. The gala preparations proceeded flawlessly. I called in every favor and used every resource at my disposal to make the event perfect. This wasn't just about proving my own competence anymore. It was about setting the stage for what was to come. The day before the gala, the entire venue was set up and we'd run a full dress rehearsal. I stayed late into the night, doing a final walkthrough. As I was about to leave, I saw Scarlett. She was standing alone by the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering city. She looked small and lonely. She saw me, hesitated for a moment, and then walked over. "Thank you," she said suddenly. Her voice was quiet. I was surprised. "It's my job." "I know," she said. "I've reviewed every detail. You've been more meticulous than any firm my father has ever hired." She paused, looking up at me. "Leo, have you always been this capable?" She was asking if I had always had this in me, if I had just been pretending to be a useless simp for her benefit. It was a question I couldn't answer. "You should get some rest, Miss Vanderbilt. Tomorrow is all about you," I said, sidestepping the question and turning to leave. "I heard," she said softly from behind me, "that Connor Vance is an investor in your company." I stopped. "He is." "When did you two get so close?" she pressed. "The night of graduation. Because he stood up for me." "You could say that." She was silent for a long time. I thought the conversation was over. "Leo," she said again, and this time her voice had a fragility I had never heard before. "That night, at the graduation party. I'm sorry. I had too much to drink and my friends. I didn't mean it. An apology a year too late. If I had heard those words a year ago, I might have broken down in tears of joy. But now my heart was a still, frozen lake. "It's in the past," I said flatly. "No, it's not," she insisted, her gaze locked on me. "Leo, I know you hate me. Everything you've done, starting this company, making my father come to you, planning this perfect party. It's not about the money, is it? It's about revenge. You want to prove you're better off without me. You want me to regret it, don't you?" I looked at her eyes shimmering under the lights, filled with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. She was still so self-absorbed. She still thought the universe revolved around her. That every action I took, every ounce of my ambition, was ultimately motivated by her. Whether it was love or hate, it was still all about her. I suddenly felt exhausted. "Scarlett," I sighed, "you're really overthinking this. Get some sleep." I walked away without looking back. I was afraid if I stayed a second longer, I would tell her the cruel truth before the show had even begun. The night of the gala was a spectacle. Everyone who was anyone in New York was there. Arthur Vanderbilt was beaming, his daughter radiant in a glittering gown on his arm, as he accepted congratulations like a king. Every detail of the party was flawless. The city's elite couldn't stop talking about the Alibi Group and its brilliant young founder, Mr. Hayes. Arthur was ecstatic. In front of a group of influential guests, he clapped me on the shoulder. "Mr. Hayes, the next generation is truly a force to be reckoned with. The Vanderbilt Corporation needs talent like you." I knew my moment had arrived. Halfway through the evening, a reporter I had planted in the press pool asked Arthur a question. "Mr. Vanderbilt, there are rumors that your company is seeking a new round of financing. Is this incredibly high-profile event meant to signal confidence to the market?" The question was sharp. A hush fell over the nearby guests. Arthur's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "The Vanderbilt Foundation is as strong as ever, as you can all see. As for financing, that's just normal business. I'm confident we'll have good news to share very soon." It was a smooth, practiced deflection. But then a second reporter stood up. This one was from a small, aggressive financial blog I had carefully selected. "Mr. Vanderbilt, our sources say that your largest creditor has refused to extend your current loans. Furthermore, the 30% of company stock you've leveraged as collateral is in danger of a margin call if the share price dips any further. Can you confirm or deny this information?" The question was a bomb that detonated in the middle of the ballroom. Every eye in the room was on Arthur Vanderbilt. The color drained from his face. This was the Vanderbilt Corporation's deepest secret, the sword of Damocles hanging over their heads. I only knew because Connor had put me in touch with a senior executive at the creditor bank. That's slander. You're lying. Who do you work for? I'll have you sued for libel." Arthur roared, his voice thin with panic. At that exact moment, the massive screens around the ballroom, which had been displaying a tasteful slideshow of Scarlett's photos, flickered and changed. Now, they showed crystal-clear images of loan documents, default notices, and official bank correspondence. Irrefutable proof of the Vanderbilt financial crisis. The room erupted in gasps and frantic murmurs. "Who did this? Security? Cut the power!" Arthur yelled, completely losing his composure. I walked slowly onto the stage and took the microphone from the stunned MC's hand. "Don't bother, Mr. Vanderbilt. I put those up there." My voice boomed through the sound system, silencing the entire hall. Everyone stared at me in shock. Arthur and Scarlett spun around, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Leo, are you insane?" Scarlett shrieked. "I'm not insane," I said, looking at her, my gaze devoid of any warmth. In fact, I've never been more clear-headed in my life. I turned to the trembling patriarch. "Arthur, do you remember a man who worked for you 15 years ago? A driver named David Hayes." Arthur Vanderbilt's pupils constricted. The name was like a rusty key, unlocking a dark, buried memory. "He was your chauffeur for 10 years. He was loyal to a fault." My voice began to shake, not with fear, but with a rage I had suppressed for more than a decade. 15 years ago, on a rainy night, you were drunk. You insisted on driving, and you hit someone. To protect your reputation, to ensure your company's IPO went smoothly, you made David Hayes take the fall. You paid him off, promised you'd take care of his family, and made him take all the blame. And he believed you. He went to prison for you for 3 years. By the time he got out, his wife had died from illness and exhaustion, leaving behind a young son. And your promise to take care of them? The money you gave them wasn't even enough to cover her medical bills. That driver was my father. When he got out, he was broken and sick. He couldn't find work. He raised me on his own in poverty. Before he died, he told me not to hate you. He said you were too powerful, that we could never win. He said the money you gave us was enough for me to get through college, and that I should just study hard and forget everything. Tears were streaming down my face now. I couldn't forget. I roared into the microphone. My father's life, my mother's death, the humiliation I endured for more than a decade. How could I possibly forget? The ballroom was utterly silent. The guests were frozen, stunned by the horrifying revelation. Arthur Vanderbilt swayed on his feet, looking like he was about to collapse. And Scarlett, she just stood there, all the color drained from her face, looking at me with an expression of pure shock, terror, and profound confusion. "No, that's not possible," she whispered. "My father would never." "Ask him yourself," I said, my voice cold as ice. "Scarlett, do you finally understand? Do you get why I spent all those years by your side? From the day my father died, I made a vow that I would get justice for him. I made sure I got into your elementary school, your middle school, your college. I turned myself into a pathetic, status-obsessed simp just so I could stay close to you and learn everything about your family. Do you have any idea what I thought about every time you sent me money?" I let out a laugh that was more like a sob. "I thought, this is the debt your family owes mine. I thought, this is you, Princess Scarlett, paying me back for my father's life with your pocket money. Every single dollar you ever tipped me, I saved. That $1 million fund wasn't my startup capital. It was the poison that would bring down your entire house. I built my company. I made my name. I climbed up step by painful step for one single purpose, to stand here on this night in front of all your friends and tear the mask off your father's face, to watch the house of Vanderbilt burn to the ground." Scarlett's body crumpled, and she sank to the floor like a stringless puppet. She finally understood. I was never her simp. I was a monster her father had created. And she, in her ignorance, had been my greatest accomplice. She had financed my entire revenge, and she had personally handed me all the information I needed to destroy her. It was a con that had lasted for more than a decade, and I was the one who had directed it all. The House of Vanderbilt was finished. The scandal at the gala spread through the city's financial and social circles like a plague. The company's stock plummeted, the banks called in their loans, and partners abandoned the sinking ship. Within a month, the once mighty Vanderbilt Corporation filed for bankruptcy. Arthur Vanderbilt was indicted for his role in the hit-and-run cover-up and for subsequent financial fraud. He was sent to prison. Their mansion was auctioned off. The luxury cars were repossessed. Scarlett Vanderbilt, the princess of the Upper East Side, had fallen from the heavens and landed in the gutter. I didn't follow the news too closely. Now that my revenge was complete, I didn't feel the elation I had expected. Instead, there was just a vast, hollow emptiness. Connor said it was a kind of PTSD and told me to take a vacation. I left my company in the hands of a professional CEO and flew to Montana. I rented a cabin and spent a month by a quiet lake, surrounded by mountains. Staring at the clear water and the endless sky, the heart that had been consumed by hatred for 15 years finally, slowly, began to quiet down. When I returned to New York, I made a decision. I dissolved the Alibi Group. The company was born from a place of hate. With the hate gone, it no longer had a reason to exist. I wanted to start a life that was truly my own. I decided to leave New York, move to some small, quiet city where no one knew my name. The day before I was scheduled to leave, I got a call from Connor. "Leo, let's get a drink. Someone wants to see you." I didn't want to see anyone, but Connor insisted. He said seeing this person was the last step to truly moving on. I went to the dive bar in the East Village we used to frequent. In a dark corner booth, I saw a thin figure. It was Scarlett. She was wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans, her face scrubbed clean of makeup, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. If it weren't for her unmistakable features, I might not have recognized her. All the light, all the arrogance that had once radiated from her was gone. In its place was a bone-deep weariness. I didn't sit. I just stood in front of the table. "What do you want?" I asked. She looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice raspy. "For my father, and for everything I ever did to you. I'm so sorry." I said nothing. "I sold everything I left," she said, pushing a debit card across the sticky table. "My mother's jewelry, everything. There's a little over $80,000 in there. I know it's nothing compared to what you went through, but it's all I have." I stared at the card, a storm of emotions churning inside me. "What are your plans now?" I asked. "I don't know." She shook her head, her eyes vacant. "Get a job, I guess. I'll do anything, whatever it takes to get by." The princess, now worried about making rent. Perhaps that was punishment enough. I pushed the card back toward her. "I can't take this," I said. "The debt between our families was settled the day your father went to prison. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't owe me anything." And it was true. She hadn't. She was just born into that family, sculpted by its values into the person she became. She was cruel, arrogant, and thoughtless, but she didn't deserve this. She was a victim of the tragedy, too. "You keep it," I said. "Build a life." I turned to leave. "Leo," she called out behind me. I stopped, but I didn't turn around. If none of it ever happened, her voice was trembling, laced with a desperate, hopeless wish. "Is there any chance, even a small one, that you ever really liked me?" The question came far too late, and its answer no longer mattered. The bar's ancient jukebox was playing a song. I paid my dues time after time had done my sentence, but committed no crime. I stood there for a long moment. In the end, I didn't give her an answer. I just walked out of the bar, leaving the darkness behind me, and stepped into the bright, unforgiving sunlight. Some questions are better left unanswered. Some people, once you miss them, are gone for good. My revenge was over. My debt was paid. Now, for the first time, I was going to live for myself.